They say there once existed a tribe who could make stone breathe, a people who walked into the darkest caves, and walked out carrying light that no fire had ever made. To the world outside, they were whispers, shadows, a rumor carved into the bones of mountains. No one believed they were real, until explorers found the first cave that acted like a living machine. The walls weren't dead rock. They pulsed, they hummed, they moved air, water, and sound in ways no primitive humans should have understood. It was as if an entire mountain had been engineered, not by tools, not by metal, but by pure understanding of nature. This tribe didn't survive inside caves. They transformed them, reshaping stone, airflow, light, and water, into a self-sustaining world that protected them. Like a living organism protects its own heart. Some historians insist it's impossible. Some archaeologists refuse to acknowledge the evidence. But the caves don't lie. The technology is real. The engineering is real. And the tribe that once breathed stone left behind systems modern architects still cannot fully explain. So who were they? How did they turn caves into living machines? And why did they vanish, as if the mountains swallowed them whole? To understand the truth, you must step into their world, a world carved out of darkness. A world where stone wasn't an obstacle, it was a partner. And once you hear how they shaped it, you'll realize they weren't hiding from the world. They were building something the world wasn't ready for. Long before cities existed, before kingdoms drew borders on stolen land, the Stonebreathers lived inside the earth. Not out of fear, but because they believed stone was alive. To them, mountains were not obstacles. They were ancient parents, beings that carried memory. Every ridge, every crack, every cavity was a message. If you listened long enough, the mountain spoke. If you understood its language, you could shape it, without breaking its spirit. Early anthropologists dismissed these stories as mythology. Primitive superstition, they said. But then they found the chambers. Caves with airflow systems that mimicked lungs. Channels that purified water using only gravity and stone porosity. Acoustic tunnels that carried sound across impossible distances, so the tribe could speak without ever leaving their shelters. These were not shelters, they were mechanisms. Natural machines sculpted through generations of knowledge. The Stonebreathers studied erosion, air pressure, condensation, echo patterns, not scientifically, but intuitively. Their survival forced them to become the world's first environmental engineers. They carved chambers that stayed warm through winter and cool through the burning summers. They shaped vents that captured wind and turned it into oxygen flow. They learned how to grow caves into multi-layered ecosystems. And over decades, these caves became cities. But there was one design that stunned researchers the most. A system that behaved so intelligently. It challenged everything humanity believes about ancient people. The chamber that lived. The first explorers who entered the chamber that lived thought it was a trick of the light. But the more time they spent inside, the more they realized this room was responding to them. When too many people crowded in one area, the airflow shifted, redirecting fresh oxygen into the space, as if the mountain sensed imbalance. When torches flickered from lack of oxygen, hidden vents opened deeper in the walls, feeding the fire with a controlled breath. When sound grew loud, the echoes softened, absorbed by the sloped surfaces shaped by ancient hands. It wasn't magic. It wasn't supernatural. It was engineering. But here's the mystery. How did a tribe with no metal tools, no architectural theories, and no written language create systems that mimic modern ventilation, acoustics, and hydration algorithms? The deeper scientists explored, the stranger the discoveries became. Some chambers contained stone pillars, carved into spirals, not random designs, but air amplifiers. When wind entered the cave, these coils intensified its speed, pushing oxygen into deeper levels. Other rooms had walls shaped like rib cages, designed to flex slightly with temperature changes, allowing air to shift naturally, without physical openings. It was a cave that learned, a cave that adapted, a cave that behaved like a living machine. But the biggest secret was buried deeper, far beyond where sunlight could reach. A chamber so eerily perfect that even the research teams hesitated to enter, because it suggested something impossible. The Stonebreathers didn't just understand the mountain, they communicated with it. When researchers finally reached the lower chamber, They found something that shouldn't exist in nature, a giant stone diaphragm, a structure that rose and fell, very slowly, in sync with the airflow of the entire cave network. It wasn't alive, but it behaved like a biological organ. By shaping the chamber with perfect curvature and carving pressure channels around its perimeter, the Stonebreathers had created a natural pump, one that circulated air, distributed heat, and controlled humidity without a single moving part. The chamber breathed, and at the center of it was the tribe's greatest secret, a circular well of resonant stone that produced low-frequency sounds. When air passed over it, these sounds weren't random. They were coded, mathematical, predictable, a language. One scientist suggested this resonance allowed the tribe to monitor the cave's health, the same way doctors listen to lungs. If airflow slowed, the pitch dropped. If water pressure increased, the tone deepened. If oxygen thinned, the chamber whispered higher. The tribe wasn't reacting to cave changes. They were maintaining it in real time, guided by sound. Imagine an ancient society that tuned a mountain like a musical instrument. They didn't build machines. They became the other half of the machine. But the question remained, why did they vanish? Why abandon a masterpiece that could have protected hundreds for centuries? The answer came when they discovered the final chamber, a warning carved into stone. The deepest chamber held no machines, no tools, no bodies, just a message, a spiral carved into the floor, ringed by symbols historians still cannot fully decode. But they understand the meaning. It was not a record. It was not a map. It was a countdown, a geological warning. The Stonebreathers had discovered that the mountain they lived inside was changing, not from erosion, not from weather, but from pressure building deep below the earth. A future collapse, a massive structural failure, a death sentence. And the tribe, who had spent generations listening to stone, heard the first signs of destruction long before it arrived. So they didn't vanish. They evacuated. They left their world behind, because the machine they built, the living cave, told them it was dying. And when the collapse eventually came, it sealed every exit behind them, trapping their masterpiece in darkness for centuries. The world calls them primitive, but their engineering surpasses what many modern structures achieve. They built an ecosystem that breathed, that thought, that warned, that sacrificed itself to keep them alive. Maybe they didn't disappear. Maybe they simply learned to trust the mountain's final message. And maybe the real question isn't how they turned caves into living machines, but whether we're still capable of listening to the world the way they once did. Before you go, tell me in the comments, should I explore another forgotten tribe that mastered nature in ways we still struggle to understand?